I'm like really nervous.
I'm trying to find a good spot to jump in to hit the
For the
record button. That's all.
Hello, welcome everybody. Yeah. We are recording. All right. So here is our agenda for today's session. First, we'll run through a few updates and reminders, and then we'll talk about some Gutenberg news. We'll give an update on summer support / availability of WiscWeb team members. And then we'll cap the session with a deep dive into things you ought to know about the media library. But first, we're going to get started with a little meet and greet with the team. Since some of you might be new or haven't worked with some of the team members directly, we wanted to give you an opportunity to meet the entire WiscWeb team and get to know us a little bit, get to know what we do for the team. So we'll try to come off cam here as we're able so that you can see our faces, and we'll provide our names as well as a little information. So as I said, my name is Jenna Klinner. I'm the service coordinator for the WiscWeb team. And I'll kick things over to Matt.
Um, I'm looking at my screens and things like that. Hi, everybody. I'm Matt. Most of you would know who I am. Matt Goins. I do a lot of different things with the WiscWeb team: training, support, consultations, guidance, heartbreaks, things of that nature. Whenever
Did you
questions
say
come in,
heartbreaks?
yeah. When people ask questions like Matt, we would really like to do this, or we'd like this plugin. I'm usually the one that's telling them no. You or I are the ones who are telling them no. So
Yeah.
we're kind of like the heartbreak section. Yeah, I don't know. That's about it for me. Uh, I'll go down the line here and I'll just say, Scott, go ahead.
Oh, I'm next in line. I don't have the lineup, so you'll have to inform who's next as well. Hi everyone, I'm Scott Berg. I started on the WiscWeb team like 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, as a front-end developer, doing a lot of work on the UW theme. Still doing some work on the UW theme and some of the Gutenberg stuff, but I'm mostly doing infrastructure now, so maintaining and upgrading some stuff on the current infrastructure, as well as doing some future state work as well. And that's
Andrea.
me.
All right. Hi, I'm Andrea Roning. I've been a front-end developer with WiscWeb for about 2 years. I'm mostly focused on the WordPress block editor known as Gutenberg right now. I spend a lot of time testing that and also some time on the current UW theme. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. I think maybe Andy?
Hi, my name is Andy Summers. I think I'm probably the newest member of the WiscWeb team. I've been working on it for under a year, but I've been with the university for a lot longer than that. I also work on an application for UW System, or Universities of Wisconsin now, for their youth camps. And yeah, in WiscWeb, I am a software developer, do some of the infrastructure work. I've been looking a lot at Gutenberg recently, and did some of the iCal download stuff a few months ago, if you remember that. So yeah, I love working with the team.
Jose has arrived also. So introduce himself if you can.
Hey, give me 1 second. I apologize. I was warming up my food and it wasn't warming up, and then my computer got a little weird and it wouldn't let me sign in, and now the camera won't work. It's my morning today.
You're there. Introduce yourself. Tell everybody about you.
So hi everybody. My name is Jose. I work at the help desk, do help desk level 1 primarily. I am what we call an embedded agent. So what that means is that about 10% of my work, and that's not working either. Okay. I'm
straight
done.
up the Bucky.
Nothing wants to work. So 20% of my work, or 10 hours a week, I work with the WiscWeb team, primarily approving WiscWeb requests. If you create a new site request, I'm the one who goes through it and make sure it meets all the criteria, responding to your support tickets. And then as of late, I've been kind of slowly begin to help do a little bit of development on the Gutenberg stuff, just testing stuff out. And starting, I think next week, I'm going to be available for office hours as well. So you'll be able to reach out to me for one-on-one time for support.
Yeah, awesome. So that's the WiscWeb team. It's a great team. If you couldn't tell already, we're big fans of one another. And I think the biggest thing to note is that we're not all full-time with WiscWeb. So folks like Matt, Andy, and Jose are just part-time with the team, if you weren't aware. All right. So let us know if you have questions for us. You can throw them in the chat, but I'll move along here. So next up is our updates and reminders. We have one reminder and one update for you today. First up, you should have received emails from the Do It PCS team about this. But as a reminder, Google Drive storage has now been set to 0 gigabytes for service accounts. If you had been using a service account for your Google Drive tools that integrate with your WiscWeb site, these will need to be moved elsewhere. We recommend setting up a shared drive for this purpose. That's the recommendation from PCS as well, so that ownership can be shared amongst your team members. If you're unsure about what might be using Google Drive tools, it would probably be things like WP data tables populated with Google Sheets and maybe Google Slides, Sheets, or Docs that are embedded within a page of your site. Anything else you'd want to add there? Is there anything I'm missing there, Matt?
No, I was actually gonna. You commented on it. I was going to say the WP data tables sheets would be the biggest thing that
That's
I've been
probably the
working
big
on
one
with
Yes.
folks is moving that content over to a shared drive versus a personal drive or a service account drive. YouTube videos are not related because that's outside of Google Drive. We're talking specifically about Google Drive. You can still use service accounts as the accounts that are owning like YouTube channels and things like that. Like for example, we have our support service account, and that owns our YouTube account as well. So you should be good on the YouTube side.
Yeah, that update was just for Google Drive storage for service accounts. All right, and then the second update we have we actually have a reminder is that we are currently in a feature freeze for the UW theme. This update was communicated to all WiscWeb users in a recent Gutenberg focused email that you should have received the end of May. Essentially, as we continue to build in Gutenberg, also known as the block editor for WordPress, the WiscWeb and university marketing developers just don't have the bandwidth to focus on both simultaneously. So our focus is primarily on Gutenberg at this point. Please feel free to continue submitting new feature requests via our feature request board if you'd like. This will help us understand features we might need to build in the new theme, but generally just kind of be aware that that doesn't mean that we'll be adding it to the current theme, and there will be some delay as the new theme won't be ready for a while. So let us know if you have questions about that. And speaking of Gutenberg, we have some Gutenberg news. So in case that last update was a bit of a shock or confusing to you, I'll reiterate the info that was recently sent to our WiscWeb users list regarding the Gutenberg transition. And as a reminder, Gutenberg is the new editor for WordPress. We're currently working on a new version of the UW theme that will be built in this tooling. Apologies in advance if I sound like a broken record. It's just because folks are coming into this information at different times and we don't want it to be confusing or a shock to anyone. So I'll be sort of reiterating what that is and what that means along the way. In the email that we sent on May 29th, we covered a few new pieces of Gutenberg information that we wanted to share with the campus community. This was based on the questions that we were receiving from all of you. So thank you for sharing those questions. It's helpful for us to know what you're wondering about, honestly. Very helpful. The biggest update is that everything we know about the current state of this new Gutenberg theme is now located on the UW theme website. There is a link to this info right from the homepage under the heading Gutenberg transition. And there's a little image there in the slide that kind of shows you where that information is on the homepage. Perhaps Matt can drop a link to the UW theme site in the chat as well, if you're able, Matt. This page includes information on the timeline, the migration process, that feature freeze I mentioned in the previous slide. and info on how to stay connected. Like if you're interested in learning more along the way, please consider sending this information to those within your units and organizations that need to be aware. And we're hoping that this information is helpful to all of you, but we'd really love to learn more about where you might still have questions. So I'm going to just pause here in case there are any. You can unmute or you can post in the chat if there's other pieces of information that would be helpful for you all related to this Gutenberg migration that we might need to capture.
Stunned silence.
Hopefully that means that this was helpful information. But please do feel free, if you think of anything, add it to the chat. You could also follow up with us. We have a support request form on our website where you can send this information if something does pop up. We do hope to add new info periodically. I'll also just remind folks, we do have a WordPress users group community of practice that is wonderful. Shout out to Rich Gasson. And within that group, there's a Teams group in Microsoft for it that you can add yourself to. When you add yourself, you'll automatically get added to a sub channel where we'll be posting updates on the Gutenberg transition. So in addition to this web page, we hope to share little updates there as well, maybe gather feedback along the way. We're still learning how best to communicate stuff though. Let's see. We have a comment from Mark. I don't use websites nearly enough at the end of the day. Would I still be able to use text HTML coding to make stuff happen? You would definitely be able to build things in this new state if that's what you're asking. HTML coding is something that you could technically toggle to the source code if that's what you're asking about, Mark. However, likely it would be more choosing blocks to build with. I'll pause here, Matt, in case you have any.
I'm not
Like,
super familiar with all the blocks. To be fair, I'm not super familiar with all the blocks that exist, but I do believe there is an HTML block, at least from what I've been tinkering with, because I've played around with like the paragraph block versus the HTML block to try and lay some different things out. Ketter, high five. What you got?
Yes, I was just going to confirm that there is a block that will allow for some of that same experience that you have now with toggling between like the source editor to add HTML if you want like a little bit of fine tuning of things. There would still be some of like the same, similar to what there is now. There's like some things you can't embed, for example, like those things with core WordPress don't change, but it's called the custom HTML block. And there's probably other ways too when you're adding like a paragraph block, which would be like a snippet of text. You can probably move between that source editor as well, similar to you can now.
thank you, Ketter. And for those who aren't familiar with Ketter Joyner, Ketter is now with the university marketing team as a UX designer. She's going to be helping with the Gutenberg transition, giving her awesome insight into both design and UX. And if you're not familiar from working with her through some projects that kind of relate to WiscWeb, you might have seen her artwork in the design community. She's the one that does those awesome little like badger woodland creature animal graphics that are in the slides that they present in that session.
Thanks,
I also
Yeah.
so someone also sent me a direct message, but I do find it humorous because I think it was Andrea and I that was talking about this. Whenever we do say the Gutenberg editor, we do think of like Steve Gutenberg and things like that. Like
Yes,
it is
totally
very much
understandable if you're
yeah.
getting confused when you hear Gutenberg. Yeah, definitely.
Mahoney.
We have a question from Audrey. Can you still personalize the blocks with HTML edits? Okay, that sounds
I think
similar
that's
to what
similar.
Mark was
Yeah,
asking.
similar to what.
So hopefully we covered that. Let us know if there's still questions. Those descriptions made sense. Awesome. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, so kind of moving on here. Let's see. Looks like there was a link to the WordPress users community of practice group. Thank you for posting those for those who want to join. Some could make a website about Gutenberg showing how to use Gutenberg. Yep. There probably are some of those out there. German craftsman and inventor who originated a method of printing from movable type.
Rich,
Yep.
Rich is just educating us. I'm goofing
Letting
around,
us
and
know
Rich
who.
is Rich is educating us.
Yeah. Star of Cocoon. Amazing. All right. So if there's not, I think that you can hire him to do things. Yeah. We're just doing like playful banter at this point. If we don't see the new editing window, is that a problem? It is not available yet. Great
Yep.
question, Peter. So
Yeah.
this is something we're currently working on, and that's a reminder to us to like kind of revisit this so that folks who haven't been at previous sessions are aware. We're still on the what we call the classic editor for WordPress in the UW theme. What we're doing right now in collaboration with University Marketing is building out an entirely new theme that works in this new editing experience known as Gutenberg or the block editor, and that is not available yet. If you visit the information that Matt shared earlier, the UW theme website has information about like the timeline and transition. It looks like Ketter also dropped that link in the chat. Thank you, Ketter. But essentially, like this is going to be a multi-year project, and it's going to be a while before we have something ready for you all. We're just kind of getting you all prepped for that future transition so that you're aware that it's coming, and we can make sure that you get information from us along the way.
Yeah, one of the goals that I have, and again, this isn't near future, but likely next year when we start really getting close to a theme delivery, is to sort of go through a process of redesigning a site using the new block editor, using the Gutenberg editor, because I want people to be able to see, because I'm learning it as well. I am not super familiar with it, so I'm learning it. I'm at a spot where a lot of you are as well. And so I want to make sure that I walk people through what a process would look like for recreating something in the block editor.
Yeah,
That's
and
not to
also,
say. I just want to say that's not to say that people are going to have to recreate their sites. We are looking for migration paths and things like that. But I want to build something from scratch so people can see how all the blocks work together.
yep. And I think something important to revisit as well is that one of the major reasons we're doing this, in addition to the fact that this is the new state of WordPress, is we've heard a lot from all of you that you want a little bit more flexibility and control, and this editor does allow for that. So we're hoping to deliver some better options to you in the future. And Ketter just reminded folks, Gutenberg and Block Editor are used. They're basically the same exact thing. So if you hear us say Gutenberg or Block Editor, we're talking about the same thing. Technically, WordPress has transitioned to more block editor language, but it originally came out under the title Gutenberg, and that's better known, I guess. So that's why we tend to use that language, if that's helpful. But they are used synonymously. All right, I'm going to move ahead, but please feel free to add more notes to the chat if there's anything that you think of. All right, so next is a little note about our summer support availability. For the remainder of the summer, Matt Goins will have limited availability as he is out Thursdays and Fridays. As a reminder, Matt works with the knowledge base team for 50% of his time, so you may see a delay in messaging and limited availability for things like office hours. And I'll pause here in case there's anything Matt would like to add.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I have updated my office hours availability now so that I'm available Mondays through Wednesdays to schedule time with me now instead of what it used to be, which was Mondays and Fridays. But I want to make sure that I make myself as available as possible for folks over the summer, because I know this is when a lot of people get work done on their sites, and a lot of people do like to meet and chat with things. And Jenna will get into it in a second, but Jose is also joining now with doing office hours for us to sort of help alleviate some of that. so his availability will also be. I'll drop a link into the chat in a second here. But yeah, I just want to point out, like, don't, just because my availability is limited, quote unquote, and yes, I am 50-50 with the knowledge base and WiscWeb, don't ever hesitate to get in touch with me. I know a lot of people do like to directly message me and things like that. Don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I will still try to email back as quickly as I can. I just won't be on Teams during those times, so you won't be able to chat with me that way. But just don't hesitate. Reach out to me. Let's get something on the books, and we can chat whenever I'm available.
Yeah, and Matt kind of covered it, but Jose is joining our office hours. He also mentioned this earlier, so you will see his availability. I think Matt's going to drop a link in the chat as well. But as a reminder, he's really just with WiscWeb 2 hours a day, as he is an embedded help desk agent with our team, but his primary role is within the help desk level 1 support. So limited availability as well, but we're doing what we can to kind of cover office hours during this sort of summer time when things are a little bit weird, as well as with Gutenberg, which is my next note. Just important to note here that with this being our primary focus for the foreseeable future, our general team capacity is lessened during this time. That's not to say that no one will respond to you. That's just kind of, I want to make sure to note this explanation in case you experience any delays in messaging. We're just focused on that at the moment. Yeah, Mark. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I actually was thinking about, I didn't want to say this without it being prompted. The block editor is actually WordPress's primary editing environment now. So if you were to go to WordPress.com or WordPress.org, I can't remember which one is the one where you can like you can like build out your own site through WordPress's domain. Like you can tinker with the block editor there and get some experience using it. I will say though, while you can work with the block editor there, we are going to have some things set up uniquely with WiscWeb. So I don't want people to get so accustomed to something that still might be different when we get to the UW theme version of the block editor. So but yes, you could actually go out to like WordPress.com or WordPress.org, whichever one it is, and actually just like create your own like little site using the block editor.
Yeah, so Matt was kind of commenting on a comment that came
Question.
in through
Sorry. Yep.
the chat there, just about like how could you get a little experience. And as Matt said, we've actually like we've opted not to show you too much because we don't want to make it confusing. What we deliver in the new version of the UW theme will likely be different from something that you test directly from WordPress. So if you'd like to, you can go out and play around, but just note that that will be different from what is delivered in WiscWeb for a couple different reasons. Or sorry, in the UW theme for a couple different reasons. One is that by then WordPress will likely have changed something. So they're still making a ton of changes to their core Gutenberg code. So I would expect that to change. But also we are building something that's based on the needs of a higher ed environment, which is very different from like the general audience of WordPress. So we've literally like made the decision not to show too much just so that we limit confusion there. But when we feel it's appropriate, we will absolutely be sharing demos, if that's helpful. And finally, back to summer support and availability. July 4th is on a Thursday this year, which means most folks will be wanting to take that Friday off as well. Just an obvious time for folks to be gone, get an extra long weekend. And when I say most, I really mean all. Everyone on our team will be gone that day. We found out. So we will only be responding to emergencies that day. Please expect a delay in any other messaging. All right. So my last little update today is about the media library, where there are a few things that have come up surrounding media library stuff recently, and I thought that they were worth mentioning here. We can answer questions as they come up too, because this is a lot of varied information. First, I wanted to remind folks that anything uploaded to the media library, including images and things like PDFs and other docs, are publicly searchable in Google. Each of these files gets its own URL, and these can be crawled by Google bots. So just keep that in mind as you're uploading content to your site. Would that be something that you'd want someone to find in a Google search result? If not, maybe don't put it in the media library. Consider this for things like CVs and even student images that you upload, and really any other files that you just don't want to be searchable on the web. Consider protecting the individual from having their personal information and imagery from being on the web unless there's a really good reason or need for it. So if you must upload this content, consider blanking out personal contact information in the CV before uploading. And for student images, always get permission before posting, and consider removing them after the student has left the organization. Another reminder, the page protection options that are available in WiscWeb are not actually protecting access to media. The link within the page might not be able to be viewed if you don't have page access. So, that's just sort of embedded in the page. You can't view the page unless you have the link. However, anyone with that URL to that file can still get to the media. The way that WordPress handles media URLs is different than the structure for pages. They do not inherit the protections from the page. If you need media content like images or PDFs or docs to be protected, we recommend moving that to Box or Google Drive and linking out to it. Set the permission in those tools, and that will ensure that those are not found by folks who should not have access. An issue we're seeing commonly is groups that are cramming a bunch of text into images. There are a few barriers that this introduces, quite a few. For one, this is just not a great way to absorb information, particularly when viewing from a mobile device. This is especially true if you're building complex workflows into a JPEG or PNG image. It's also not helping your SEO, as none of that text can be crawled by something like a Googlebot. And finally, it can be a huge accessibility barrier if you're not also providing the same information either within the alt text for the image or on text on the page. So if you're not sure how to accommodate the content of something like that in your page elements instead of an image, this is a great example of something that we can advise on in office hours. We'd be happy to help you with that content strategy. I also highly recommend the Make It Accessible guides that exist on the it.wis.edu website. Those offer insight into best practices and how to improve accessibility of your web content. And thank you, Michael. Michael just noted media releases are also something to consider, maybe not uploading to your website for student-based media or pictures of public guests at events, etc. So another great example of something you might not want to put in the media library.
Also worth noting too that
yep.
we've seen a pretty large increase in web scraping bots and other things like that just kind of slurp up as much content as they can for whatever purposes they want, whether that be search indexing or AI generative stuff. I think it's probably more prevalent than ever to kind of just consider what you're uploading,
Yes.
and what the reach of that stuff is. Because once you upload it, if something scans it, it's got it.
It's got it. Yep. It's there. Yep. Great example or great update. Thank you, Scott. Finally, I want to revisit something that we've mentioned in the past in case you weren't at the session that this was mentioned in. We are aware that several groups would like some tooling that allows for filtering, sorting, and maybe even categorizing of media files in the media library. We definitely understand this need, as many of you have very large media libraries, and it can be challenging to audit and manage that. We have hesitated in obtaining a plugin for this purpose because WordPress appears to be planning some new features for this. It's not clear when that will be rolling out, but previous documentation indicates that they have plans for a core update that will include some of these abilities. So rather than duplicate that functionality in something like a plugin, that will hopefully be provided in core WordPress in the future. So we've opted to wait. We will provide more updates on this as soon as we know more. We honestly haven't heard much, but just noting that for any of you who might have that need. Should we pull any media images that we're no longer using? Yeah, great option. If you know you're not using the media, definitely go ahead and clear that out. And then I did want to note, I think we came up with this update. It wasn't in my presenter notes here, but something we also noted is that the media library really isn't intended for video content. So if you have MP4 files or other videos that you need to upload to the site, we highly recommend not putting those in the media library and instead put those into something like Kaltura or YouTube. Load them there. That's really what those tools are intended for. Those are very large files that aren't well hosted in the media library. So instead, you can embed those videos via Kaltura YouTube directly in a page of your site.
Rich and Ben had a similar question. I don't know if there's a good answer to that, because in the media library, there is an option if you go to like the list view. There is an option, he says, waiting for it to show. There's an uploaded to column, but I don't know if I don't know how efficient that is to tell you everywhere it might be
I
used.
think so. There is a way that you can see, and we can kind of revisit that at the end here, maybe do some screen sharing. But the way that you would look this up is not entirely accurate because it doesn't account for images you may have linked in what's called a custom post type. So like the fact staff listing, all of your staff imagery, it's not really accommodating that. It's just looking in pages and regular posts, I believe. But we can take a look at that.
The feature that you're talking about, Matt, in the media library is also only showing the post or page that a piece of media was uploaded to. And there's nothing stopping someone from using that on other posts or pages.
Yes.
So there's it's not a terribly accurate way of knowing whether or not something is used.
Yes. That was the last piece for this presentation, so we can actually kind of try to show you that if you'd like. I'm going to stop sharing this presentation here.
So while Jenna's getting out of sharing the presentation, one thing that I wanted to touch on, and Jenna mentioned it with the videos, putting those things up in YouTube or Kaltura, etc. Another thing that I would want people to make sure that they're aware of when they put videos out there is similar to a text heavy image. If you put a lot of information into a video, text based, so that you expect people to read that stuff, you're still doing yourself a disservice from an accessibility standpoint and from an SEO standpoint. Because if you have all of this great content that you have added into this video, Google's not watching the video, it's not crawling the video. So you want to take that content, you can keep it into the video if you want to use that for like marketing, a marketing tool, but you still want to pull that stuff out and put it somewhere on page so that Google can also crawl it and people could search for it within your pages or from Google or wherever it might be. So you want to use text as much as you possibly can, because that just aids you in getting people to your site and getting Google to your site as well.
Yeah, and I can kind of show, like, there is an option in Google, but what we're kind of talking about in the chat is this actually isn't entirely accurate. So we wouldn't recommend it, but I will show you there is some ability here. So I'm just on the back end of the WiscWeb site here. I've clicked on the media link to get to the media library, and then I've actually toggled to the list view here with this icon. You can kind of toggle between like the grid view, this is called, or the list view. There is an option under all media items in this drop down for unattached. And I think the concept of that is essentially supposed to be like, these are things that are not linked anywhere. But what we're saying in the chat is that's actually not accurate. As Scott pointed out, that's just things that were uploaded directly to the media library. And it wouldn't account for things like fact staff profile pages, as those have been built in a custom post type. So not entirely accurate way to audit your media. And generally, I think what we're kind of trying to point out here is like, there isn't a great way currently, and we are aware that there is a need for this. So WordPress plans to roll something out, or it looks like they're planning to roll out some new features that will accommodate this a little bit better. And we will keep you posted on those updates when we have more info to share. I'm gonna stop sharing because the view is not great for looking at the chat thread. Looks like there haven't been other questions yet. Yeah, Rich noted that that attached option is not accurate based on some recent things that he's done, and that is definitely going to be the case. Other questions that you have, we probably won't be going to the full 1 p.m. because that's the content we have today, but we're happy to hang around if you have questions on things like the Gutenberg transition, this media update, our summer availability, anything else we mentioned, or just general questions that you have. Matt is anxiously waiting. What questions do you have for us?
It's travel plans for the summer. How many
Travel
states? How many states will I be visiting during this summer baseball tour?
Do you have like a map you're putting pins in, Matt?
No, my son is excited though because he's getting to go to new states. We go to Nebraska. He's excited.
All right. Well, I guess we can turn off the recording there, but we can hang in here for a little bit if there are questions that pop up.